Okay, so this is a few Git bits. The rooms have been changed, but I think I made that clear. If you have been using Git for a while, a lot of this may be familiar to you, so hopefully not. If you're new to Git, a lot of this may be confusing to you, but hopefully not. It's just kind of a general hints and tips that I've kind of picked up over the past several years of using Git. Hopefully there'll be at least one or two slides in it that might pique your interest up. If you go to lejo.github.io/code, you can find the link to the repo, which has all the slides, which are just readmes, and the examples and links to other repos. Okay, so the first tip is having something on your prompt is helpful. There's lots and lots of things on GitHub. If you search for Git prompt, you'll find lots of different ways of doing this. There's probably hundreds. And some of them, you can have tons of information in your prompt. I prefer to keep it simple. So if you have a look here, I just have the branch, which is in green, which means the repo is clean. If it's dirty, it turns red. So that's quite useful. If I stash something, it tells me that the number 1 is the number of stashes I have. And because generally a stash is related to a branch, if I switch to another branch, the stash number disappears. So that's quite useful to see. Because I tend to have lots and lots of branches, and I end up with stashes, and I switch between branches, and then realize, oh, there's something I was working on ages ago. So that's quite useful. That's just something in my bash RC, which is just this. I won't go through it, but it's in the repo if you need to see it. Because because I'm using a Mac, and sed is special on a Mac, I have to do a little bit of different things there, and just sticks it in the prompt, which is quite useful. Okay, so I'm sure we all do this. You can create aliases, because obviously you don't want to type checkout every time and status every time. But you can actually do this on a project-specific config. So the example here is from the DUIC. No internet connection. But what you can do is you can create a project-specific Git config for project-specific aliases, which can be quite useful if you're doing the same thing a lot of times in just one project, one repo. The other ones are quite obvious. I use br for branch, but I use the more verbose one, which gives me the remote name, and it tells me if the branch is gone. Next, I use work in progress branches quite a lot. Branches of branches, branches of branches of branches, because what I tend to do is I will hack away, do lots of small commits, and then when I merge it back to the source branch, I will squash those commits. And if you use, I know there that GitLab is quite clever, and if you put WIP in the branch, it won't let you merge it back to master, which will, to stop you catching yourself out. So there's an example here where you can see that I had this work in progress branch, another commit there, and then I squashed it down. And what I did is, as you can see, I was writing these commit messages, which are obviously useless, so I don't want to merge those commits down. So when I squashed it, I actually spent a bit of time writing a slightly more useful commit message. This is relates to that. No single commit, I think, should break tests, which if you're using continuous integration, you'll find that you push out these work in progress branches, and maybe they break tests. If your test suite takes 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours to run, you don't want to be waiting every time between every commit. So you push out these work in progress branches, end of the day or whatever, you look at your CI server, realize, oh, I've broken some tests, make the commits to fix them, and then squash them down. So then you have your commits, you've not broken any tests, all's good. Obviously the big reason for that is for git bisect. But what if you have pushed out a branch and you're down, your tests break down in the depths somewhere and you can't squash it for whatever reason, or you realize you made a typo, etc., etc. This is where rebase can come in use. I think the biggest use case for rebase is people want to merge a branch without creating a merge commit. But what you can do is you can rebase because you want to reorder commits, or you want to squash commits, or even delete commits. And to give you an example of this, what I'll do here is I have a branch here. If I do a getlog, I have some work in progress commits here. There's quite a few there. And say I decide, I want to squash those down. I can do that with rebase interactive. So you pick the commit that interests you. And what will happen is your editor will pop up and list the commits. Now these are in reverse order to what getlog normally shows. And as you can see, it's got the comments here which tell you basically what you can do. It could be as trivial as just changing the commit message. You can even remove a commit. And so, for example, let's squash these down. Helpfully, my editor there is telling me that I can't do that. And as soon as I quit out of that, it will say, right, I've squashed these commits. You probably want to write a different commit message. Sometimes if it's a series of commits where I have actually made a useful commit message, I might keep the original commit messages there and just say this is a squash merge of etc., etc. It depends on the commit, obviously. So rebase can be quite useful for that. I quit out of there, and then it complains. Has it complained? Yeah. So it got a conflict there, but I'm not going to resolve that here. If I did resolve it, I can do git rebase, continue, and then it will carry on going. And the next point kind of relates to what I was just saying. Writing good commit messages is very useful. The biggest point I can make about this is the commit message is immutable. It's linked to the code. It's not like a comment in the code which may go unmaintained and change. And it's not like an issue tracker, which may not exist in 6 or 7 years' time. So having a ticket reference within your commit message is useful, but you really need to tell me more than that, which is, somebody mentioned this in a talk earlier on. It was a Debian talk, actually, so it kind of relates to that. And I don't know if I'm the first to use this term, but if there's a bad commit message, I refer to it as commit rot, because I don't know the original intention of that commit. And because I know people will ask about this, this is the this is the trending repos on GitHub, and I have a little tool that will tell me the, let's go over here. That will tell me the mean length of the commit message for the last 200 commits, so I can kind of slap myself on the wrist if that starts to go down. And if you look on GitHub, you'll find that the top trending repos tend to have reasonably poor commit messages. So the average commit message in the above repos is basically that. So I don't know how you can express your intention in just a subject line. And because I know people will ask, we have a few repos here, so obviously Linux was the reason for Git, and we have quite lengthy commit messages here. Go, Perl 5, Rust, not too great. This one here is an open source project which is very popular, but the commit messages are awful, which means if I find something I think is a bug, I have to go and annoy the authors of the repo and say, is this your bug or is this my bug? And if I'm having to do that, then your commit messages don't express your intention. I'll give you, yeah, later on. But I mean, this happens a lot. I find this happens a lot. People, make this change, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, that's done. It takes maybe 30 seconds to express your intention in a commit message. And if you're using the command line, you can have your editor basically give you a diff. So when my editor fires up, it splits it with the actual cached diff of the commit. So I can look and say, okay, remind myself what I've changed. Okay, I'll write a commit message that describes that. Branches, I think we all know that if you're using Git, you create lots of branches. Branches are really useful. But you end up with lots of branches and branches of branches, and what state is that branch in that I created there? Is that merged to master, and what's the commits I've made? And well, it turns out there's a quite useful Ruby command that was written 6 or 7 years ago. So it's appropriately titled git WTF, which will print out on the command line the branches I have and the state of those branches. So we can see there that I've got 3 branches that I've merged in, and one that it says is not merged in, but actually I squash merged that. So it's not, obviously it doesn't know that you squash merged something because the way the commits work, it can't figure that out. But I find this quite useful because you can also tell it to tell you which branches only exist locally, or which ones have I pushed out, which ones only exist remotely. And the colors will change depending on the state of that branch, basically. This is one I use every day, well, Monday to Friday. So it's timesheet, which just inspects my working directory and gives me the changes for the previous 24 hours. So when I'm in the daily stand-up, which actually for us is a Slack call because we're working across different offices, it's very easy to see for me to see what I've been working on. And you can give it different params. So that's very useful. Just a very trivial wraparound getlog, which you can see the command there. 4 days ago, 7 days ago. 4 days, obviously, for those long weekends. Git doesn't track directories, but we can kind of hack it to do that. So I find this useful because sometimes you have directories and you're wondering, okay, what's the state of those files in there? There's a script in there and I'm not sure that's been touched in several years. And this is just a wrapper around getlog again that will, for each file, find the last commit and print out the change to that. So if I had, what do we have here? Let's go to Mojo. So that's, again, can be quite useful. Just a trivial wraparound getlog to fake that you're tracking a directory when you're not actually tracking a directory. And the last one is Git extras, which is a repo on GitHub which has lots and lots and lots of useful Git commands in there. So just a quick example, Git summary will give you kind of meta information about the repo. Git effort will print out the most actively touched files, so you can really see where the churn is in your repo and possible candidates for splitting files up and refactoring and things like that. Git authors is useful for populating authors, and Git obliterate is useful if you accidentally push out that secret key that you shouldn't have pushed out. And there's loads. There's, I don't know, there's probably around 50 or 60 commands in that repo, so this is something you want to do. It's probably there already. And I think I'm out of time, so thank you very much. I don't know if we have time for any questions. Shrug of the shoulders, so any questions? No? Awesome. Okay, thank you very much.